The wind screamed across the frozen valley, carrying sharp snowflakes that cut against Ethan Cole's visor. His boots crunched over the ice as he followed the faint signal blinking on his wrist scanner. The planet was nothing but endless mountains and glaciers, a place where no sane person would stay for more than a few hours. But Ethan was not here for the view. He was chasing a reading no human had ever seen before. The scanner beeped faster, the signal stronger. Ethan stopped at the edge of a deep crack in the ice. Far below, something metallic glimmered in the pale sunlight. He crouched, brushing away the snow, and froze beneath the layers of ice and frost. Was a curved hull, black and smooth, too perfect to be a rock. It was a ship, and by the size of it, it was alien. His breath caught in his throat. Alien wrecks were rare enough, but here, in the middle of a dead planet. He tapped his calm AI. "I found something," he said. The calm female voice of his ship's AI responded in his ear. Life sign detected. Minimal but stable. Estimated age: 12,409 years. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Life sign. "That's impossible," he muttered. He made his way down the icy slope, sliding between sharp ridges until he reached the ship's side. The metal was cold, almost painful to touch through his gloves. There was a half-buried hatch, cracked open, just enough for him to squeeze through. Inside, darkness swallowed him. His helmet light flickered across the wall's smooth silver panels. Alien markings and frozen pipes. The air was thin, stale and dry. Every step echoed, making him feel like he was waking up ghosts. The signal drew him deeper until he entered a large chamber, and there she was, at the center of the room stood a cryopod. Its surface was made of crystal-like glass, glowing faintly blue from within. Inside lay a girl. Her skin had a pale, soft glow. Her hair floated gently as if caught in a dream. She was beautiful strangely, impossibly beautiful. But what made Ethan's chest tighten was her expression. She looked peaceful, but her eyelids twitched as though she was aware. The pod's display scrawled lines of alien script. His visor translated just enough to understand. Stasis duration: 12,409 years. Vital signs: active. Status: secure. Ethan stepped closer, pressing his hand to the glass. Her eyes fluttered. For a moment, just enough for him to glimpse a strange, bright color like molten gold. It was gone in an instant, had he imagined it. The AI's voice crackled in his ear again, warning multiple unknown signals approaching. Distance: 2 kilometers and closing. Ethan's gaze darted to the pod, then back to the door. Whoever was coming wasn't friendly. He could feel it. He quickly examined the controls. There was a release mechanism, locked with ancient codes. The AI whispered, "Ethan, if you open it, you may trigger security systems we can't predict." He hesitated. Leaving her here would mean certain capture by whoever was on their way. Freeing her could be dangerous. But she had been trapped here for thousands of years, alone. And now she was about to be taken by strangers who might not care if she lived. His gut told him one thing: if he walked away now, he'd regret it forever. He placed his hand on the console. "Override," he ordered. The AI sighed in his ear. Understood. A low hum filled the chamber, the ice on the pod surface cracking as warm vapor spilled out. The blue glow faded into white light, and her chest rose slightly. Ethan's pulse raced. She was waking up. The ground shook violently, a deep rumble echoing through the ship's frame. Snow and ice cascaded from the ceiling. The AI's voice came again. Urgent, hostile signatures now within 1 kilometer. "Arm yourself." Ethan drew his sidearm, his other hand gripping the edge of the pod as the girl's eyes slowly opened. They were brighter than before, 2 molten suns locking onto him. She spoke, her voice weak, but sharp with fear. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. She was warning him. The rumble grew louder, the sound of engines above the ice. She pressed her palm to the glass, eyes pleading, speaking faster now. The translator in his visor managed a few broken words. Danger, hunters, kill. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had no idea what he was stepping into, but he knew one thing: he was not leaving her here. The pod hissed again. The lid starting to lift. A blast of cold air rushed into the chamber, carrying the scent of ancient air long trapped inside. Ethan leaned forward, ready to pull her free. That's when he heard its heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor behind him. They were here, and they weren't knocking. Ethan glanced from the shadowed doorway back to the girl. Her hand was still reaching out. He took it, feeling the strange warmth of her skin despite the cold. "Come on," he said under his breath, even though she couldn't understand him in that moment. The ice around them wasn't the coldest thing in the room. It was the danger that had just arrived. Asterisk, the cryopod hissed as ancient locks clicked free, the glass lid rising slowly. A swirl of cold mist escaped, curling into the air like ghostly fingers. Ethan kept one hand on his pistol and the other ready to help her out. She looked fragile at first, her limbs stiff from ages of stillness. But the moment her eyes locked on him, there was a spark of life that didn't match her weakness. She tried to sit up, wobbling, speaking in a rush of alien syllables he couldn't follow. Her voice was soft but urgent, each word carrying a weight he didn't need a translator to understand. Was fear. The portable translator in his visor flickered, catching fragments. Danger, hunters, close. The same warning she'd tried to give before. Ethan reached to help her stand, but the deck trembled under their feet. Sharp, metallic clang echoed from somewhere deeper in the wreck, followed by the hiss of doors forcing themselves open. They weren't alone anymore. He slipped her arm over his shoulder, surprised by the warmth of her skin despite the freezing air, and began moving toward the hatch he had entered through. She was light to light, as if her long sleep had drained her strength, but she fought to keep pace. Her head darted toward every sound, her golden eyes alert despite her exhaustion. A shadow appeared at the far end of the corridor. Tall figures, armored, their faces hidden behind dark helmets, advanced with mechanical precision. In their hands were long rifles that hummed with a deadly energy Ethan recognized immediately. He fired first, not to kill, but to force them back, the bolt of energy striking the wall in a flash of light. The noise made the girl flinch, but she didn't slow down. Instead, she grabbed his sleeve and pulled him toward a side passage, moving faster now, as if she knew the ship's layout better than he did. They passed through a narrow maintenance shaft, crouching low to avoid hitting the frozen pipes above. Somewhere behind them, the enemy shouted in a harsh alien tongue, the words sharp like blades. The sound of pursuit grew closer. Ethan's breath fogged inside his helmet, but he pushed on. "Keep going," he urged, even though she couldn't understand him fully. Still, she seemed to grasp the meaning. Her bare feet slapped against the metal floor, leaving faint patterns of frost where she stepped. They burst into a larger chamber, where the ice had collapsed through the ceiling, forming a jagged slope that led toward the surface. Light from the pale sun spilled through, blinding after the dark corridors. Ethan lifted her onto the slope first. She glanced back at him, hesitation flickering across her face, before she began climbing. He followed close behind, but halfway up, a blast of energy tore through the ice beside him. The heat of it burned his shoulder armor, sending him sliding back a meter. The armored figures had found them. One of them raised a weapon again, but before he could fire, the girl did something Ethan didn't expect. She reached toward the ceiling, her fingers tracing strange patterns in the air. A faint shimmer appeared between them and the attackers, like sunlight bending in water. The next blast of energy hit the shimmer and dissolved into sparks. Her expression tightened with effort. And Ethan realized this barrier was costing her strength. "Let's move," he called, grabbing her hand and pulling her the rest of the way up. They emerged onto the open ice, the wind howling against them. In the distance, Ethan's shuttle sat camouflaged under a thermal cloak. He sprinted toward it with her in tow, every step sinking slightly into the snow. Behind them, the soldiers climbed out of the wreck, firing in controlled bursts that melted holes into the ice. Ethan's shuttle's AI came over the comm, her voice sharper than before. "Multiple hostiles detected. Recommend immediate departure." The shuttle's ramp lowered as they approached. Ethan shoved her inside first, then turned to cover there. "Retreat." A blast sizzled past his cheek, so close it made his vision white for a moment. He fired twice in return, forcing the pursuers to scatter. The ramp sealed shut the moment he stepped aboard. The AI took the controls without asking, lifting the shuttle off the ground. Through the viewport, Ethan saw the enemy ships, sleek, black, and fast rising from behind the ridge. Inside the cabin, the girl sat in one of the jump seats, her hands trembling as she tried to adjust the safety straps. She looked at him, her golden eyes intense, and spoke slowly, choosing her words with care. "If I live, they follow." Ethan sat opposite her, catching his breath. "I'm starting to figure that out," he said quietly. The shuttle jolted as enemy fire grazed the shields. The AI banked hard, skimming just above the ice before angling toward the upper atmosphere. The girl closed her eyes, breathing deeply, as if the motion was familiar after all these centuries. Ethan watched her for a moment. She wasn't just a survivor, she was a target worth chasing across a frozen planet. And now, by freeing her, he had put himself directly in the crosshairs of whoever these hunters were, still looking at her sitting there, fragile but unbroken. He couldn't bring himself to regret it. The stars began to appear through the canopy. As the shuttle broke free of the atmosphere, somewhere behind them, the enemy ships followed. Closing the distance, Ethan gripped the controls, feeling the thrum of the engines. He didn't know where they were heading yet, only knew they had to keep moving. And he had to find out why someone had kept her locked away for 12,000 years, because whatever the reason was, it was worth killing for. The stars streaked into long white lines as Ethan's shuttle punched into faster-than-light travel. The vibration through the hull finally eased, but his pulse didn't. The girl sat opposite him, still watching the viewport like she expected the black shapes of the hunters to appear there at any second. Her breathing had steadied, but her hands gripped the straps across her chest. Ethan stood and moved toward the small med station in the rear. "You've been frozen for a very long time. Your body's not ready for this kind of stress." He opened a pack of nutrient gel and offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it with both hands, sniffing it cautiously before tasting. Her eyes softened for the first time since they met, and she nodded once. A silent thanks. The translator on his visor finally synced with her speech patterns. Her voice was low, melodic, even in the clipped way she spoke. "They will not stop. You broke the seal. Now, I'll know I breathe again." Ethan leaned against the wall, studying her. "Who are they?" She lowered her gaze to the floor. "Last hunters of my world. Not soldiers, not family. Only scavengers of power. I am power." He frowned. "You mean? You have something they want." Her gaze lifted again, golden eyes locking onto him. "I am what they want." Before he could ask more, the AI's voice broke in over the cabin speakers. "Alert! Enemy vessels have matched our jump coordinates. Pursuit is continuing through faster-than-light space. Estimated intercept in 6 minutes." Ethan's jaw tightened. They can track us through a jump. That was impossibly, at least for normal ships. The girl's voice was quiet, but certain. "They can follow me anywhere." He moved to the cockpit, scanning the star charts. "We can't outfly them, so we hide." The AI displayed a glowing point on the chart. Nearest concealment option, asteroid field, designation, black veil. Risk, extreme. Ethan smirked faintly. Extreme sounds better than dead. He angled the shuttle toward it. The minutes stretched like hours. The girl unstrapped and came forward, bracing herself against the cockpit frame. You should leave. Me, she said. They will not kill you if I am gone. He glanced at her without slowing his hands on the controls. Not my style. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You do not understand. To keep me is to keep a beacon the whole galaxy can see. Then I guess, he said, adjusting the throttle, we'll have to turn the beacon into a weapon. The black veil appeared ahead, an endless ocean of jagged rock, drifting in a slow, deadly dance. The AI began plotting a weaving course through the debris. Behind them, 3 dark ships dropped from jump, closing fast. Ethan pushed the shuttle into the field. Massive boulders of iron and ice spun lazily past, each one big enough to crush the ship. The hunters followed, their sleeker craft slicing between the rocks with frightening agility. A glancing shot rattled Ethan's shields. Sparks danced across one control panel. We're not going to make it to the far side, the AI warned. Ethan glanced at the girl. Can you do that thing again? The barrier? She shook her head. Not here. Too much metal, too much noise. But I can blind them for a moment. Her hands began moving in strange fluid motions, weaving invisible threads. A pulse of pale light rippled outward, bending around the shuttle before expanding toward the hunters. For a heartbeat, the enemy ships wavered, their engines faltering. Ethan seized the chance, steering hard into a narrow gap between 2 spinning asteroids. One hunter ship followed too closely and clipped the rock. The explosion lit the black stones with a burst of blue flame. The girl's shoulders slumped. To still come, she whispered. Ethan opened the weapons panel. Then let's even the odds. The shuttle's small cannons weren't meant for war, but he aimed them at a cluster of frozen debris ahead. A burst from the cannons shattered it into a cloud of sharp fragments. The hunters flew straight into it. One managed to pull away. The other wasn't so lucky. The remaining ship slowed, keeping its distance now. The girl's gaze stayed on the sensor display. A TO call. More, Ethan knew she was right. He guided the shuttle out of the asteroid field and toward the shadow of a small, cold moon. The AI lowered power output to a whisper, hiding them in the moon's signal shadow. For now, the hunter seemed to give up, turning away into the void. The silence in the cabin was heavy. The girl sat beside him, her posture straight despite her exhaustion. Finally, she said, "You should know my name." "Lyra," he nodded. "Ethan?" She studied him for a long moment. "Ethan, you have broken more than ice today." He didn't answer right away, staring out at the empty stars. He had a feeling she was retend whatever he'd broken. The galaxy would make sure he paid for it. Asterisk, the cold moon drifted silently beneath them, a gray stone suspended in black space. The shuttle's lights were dimmed, every system running. In low power mode, Ethan sat in the pilot seat, eyes fixed on the scanner display, watching for any sign the hunter ship might return. Lyra sat nearby, her hands resting loosely in her lap. But her golden eyes never stopped moving, scanning every shadow. Every flicker of light outside the VIEWPORT. It had been hours since they hit here, yet the tension in the air was still thick. Ethan finally broke the silence. "You said you were power. What does that mean?" Her gaze shifted to him, calm but serious. "I was born to a bloodline that could not be replaced. My people ruled the stars, not with armies, but with our voices and our minds. We could shape thoughts, bend will, heal or destroy without touching. Two enemies, we were the most dangerous weapon. Two allies, the strongest shield. Ethan leaned back in his seat. And now you're the last one. Lyra nodded. When? The war came. My father ordered me into the chamber. I was to wake only when the Empire returned to take me home. But no one came. Centuries passed, millennia, until you. Her words were heavy, but there was no sadness in her tone, only a kind of acceptance. Ethan studied her. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a relic that the galaxy would either worship or destroy. The shuttle's AI interrupted with a soft chime warning. Long-range sensors detect multiple vessels entering this sector. Estimated arrival in 35 minutes. Lyra's head tilted slightly. They have called others. Ethan cursed under his breath. We can't keep running forever. Where's somewhere they won't follow? She thought for a moment. There is a place, far from the trade lanes. A world of ruins where my people once stood. No one dares go there too much. Memory? Coordinates? Ethan asked. She closed her eyes and spoke a string of numbers in her own language. The AI translated and set a course. Ethan pushed the throttle forward, the shuttle sliding quietly out of the moon's shadow. The engines roared back to life. And the stars began to blur. As they traveled, Lyra walked to the viewport, pressing her hand lightly against the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and sharp in the dim light. If they catch us before we arrive, they will not take me alive. Ethan turned from the controls. That's not happening. She looked over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. You speak like someone who has already chosen a side in a war they do not understand. Maybe, he said, but I've seen enough to know I don't like theirs. They sat in silence again. The hum of the engines, the only sound. Hours passed. Ethan tried to rest in the pilot's chair, but a warning beep jolted him awake. The A's voice was sharp. Incoming jump signatures 5, ship's intercept. Course, Lyra's jaw tightened. They are fast. Ethan's hands moved over the controls, faster than us. Yes, she said simply. The scanner lit up with the hunter ships closing in. They were using some kind of formation, herding. The shuttle toward empty space. Ethan realized too late they were forcing him away from their destination. A bright flash lit the cockpit as the first shot grazed their shields. The shuttle lurched, and a warning light flared red on the console. Ethan spun the ship in a sharp roll, diving toward a cluster of drifting debris. But this wasn't an asteroid field. These were the broken remains of ships. Hulks from some ancient battle floated in a silent graveyard, their twisted metal glowing faintly in the dark. Lyra's eyes widened. This place. I know this place. Shh. Ethan guided them between the wrecks. Any chance that helps us? Maybe, she said, moving to the weapons console. If I can, wake them. Before he could ask what she meant, she pressed her hands against the surface, her fingers tracing strange motions. A low hum filled the shuttle, and outside, something stirred. The dead ships began to light up, faint energy flickering through their shattered frames. One by one, their dormant weapon systems came to life, turning toward the hunter ships. Ethan stared in disbelief. You're controlling them. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. They remember me, and they remember the enemy. The hunter ships tried to scatter, but too late. The wrecked war machines unleashed a storm of energy bolts. Ripping through the formation, 2 hunters exploded instantly. Another spun out of control, its hull burning. The survivors turned and fled into jump space. Lyra released the console, her knees buckling. Ethan caught her before she fell. Her skin was cold now, and her breathing shallow. You okay? He asked. She nodded weakly. It costs me. We are safe. For now. Ethan guided the shuttle out of the graveyard, setting a fresh course toward the coordinates she had given. His eyes lingered on her as she rested in the seat beside him. Whatever power she had, it wasn't limitless. And every time she used it, she paid for it. Still, he thought, she'd just turned the ghosts of an ancient war into their allies. And if that was just the beginning, he couldn't imagine what she was truly capable of when she was at full strength. The journey to the ruined world was quiet, but the silence carried weight. The stars drifted by in cold stillness, and every so often Ethan caught Lyra staring into the void as if she could see something far beyond it. She had not spoken much since the graveyard. Her strength was returning, but her gaze held a distance. That made him wonder what memories haunted her. The AI broke the quiet. Approaching destination, planetfall, in 12 minutes. Ethan leaned forward. The world filled the viewport, a dark sphere shrouded in swirling gray clouds. Lightning flashed in the atmosphere, revealing glimpses of jagged mountains and vast stretches of dead cities. From orbit, the planet looked like a tomb. Lyra's voice was soft. "This was once the heart of my people. Every voice, every song, every law came from here. Now, only echoes remain." As they entered the atmosphere, the shuttle shook against the turbulence. Ash and dust streaked past the windows. Ethan saw the broken skeletons of towers, some leaning, others fallen completely. Massive statues, worn by storms and time, jutted from the ground like half-buried memories. They landed on a flat stretch of cracked stone near what had once been a grand hall. The building's roof was gone, but its carved walls still stood, covered in strange symbols and reliefs of battles and coronations. Ethan lowered the ramp. The air was thin and bitter, carrying a smell like burnt metal. Lyra stepped down slowly, her bare feet making no sound on the stone. She walked ahead without hesitation, as if she'd walked these streets yesterday instead of 12,000 years ago. He followed, his boots crunching over scattered debris. "What exactly are we here for?" She didn't turn. "A key. Without it, I cannot fight them again. With it, they cannot touch me." They entered the grand hall. Shafts of weak sunlight fell through the open roof, illuminating the faded murals on the walls. At the far end stood a massive stone platform with a pedestal in its center. Resting on it was a sphere of glass-like crystal, glowing faintly from within. Lyra approached it, her hand hovering just above the surface. "This holds the song of my bloodline," she said. "It will remember me. It will give back what the chamber took." Ethan scanned the room automatically, a habit born from too many dangerous recoveries. That's when he noticed movement in the shadows high above. A small piece of rubble fell, hitting the floor with a sharp tap. "Lyra," he warned. She froze, her hand still over the sphere. "They followed us," she whispered. Figures dropped from the ruined balcony, armored, faceless, their weapons drawn. This time there were more than before. They moved in a half-circle, cutting off every path to the exit. Ethan's gun was in his hand before the first one landed. He fired at the closest, forcing them to duck behind a broken column. The others opened fire, energy bolts sizzling through the dust-filled air. Lyra grabbed the crystal sphere and clutched it to her chest. It pulsed once, faintly, like a heartbeat. She looked at Ethan. "I need time." He gritted his teeth. "I'll give you what I can." He moved fast, using the fallen stonework for cover. Every shot he fired was measured, forcing the hunters to keep their heads down, buying her seconds. But they were closing in, pressing from all sides. The crystal in Lyra's arms glowed brighter. Her eyes closed, her lips moving in a language Ethan didn't understand. The light spread from the sphere into her, running like veins of gold under her skin. One of the hunters broke cover, charging at her with a blade. Ethan shot him mid-stride, but another was already moving in from the side. Before Ethan could turn, a wave of golden light erupted from Lyra, knocking the attacker back like a rag doll. The glow intensified until she seemed made of light itself. Her hair floated as if caught in water, and the air around her shimmered with heat. The hunters hesitated, and for the first time, Ethan saw fear in their movements. Lyra opened her eyes, and they burned brighter than molten metal. Her voice carried across the hall, not loud, but filled with a force that pressed against the air. The hunters staggered, their weapons lowering, some dropping to one knee as if unable to resist. Ethan stepped beside her, shielding her from any who might still fight. "I think you've got their attention," he muttered. One by one, the hunters began retreating, some stumbling as if waking from a dream. In moments, the hall was empty except for the two of them. The glow faded slowly, and Lyra's knees gave way. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground, the crystal sphere still in her grasp. She looked at him through half-lidded eyes. "Now, they will fear me again, but more will come. Always more." Ethan tightened his grip around her shoulders. "Then we keep moving. We don't give them the chance." Outside, the storms raged across the ruined city, but inside the hall, the air felt different, charged, as if something long buried had just woken up. Ethan had the sense that this was no longer just about keeping her alive. Whatever fight she was in, he was part of it now, and there was no going back. The shuttle lifted off from the ruined city, its engines sending dust and shards of stone swirling into the storm. Ethan kept the controls steady despite the turbulence, his eyes flicking between the skies above and the scanners on the console. Lyra sat in the seat beside him, the crystal sphere still clutched tightly in her hands. Its faint glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. They didn't speak for a long time. The storm's constant roar filled the silence between them. Finally, Ethan said, "Whatever that thing did back there, it scared them. They didn't even try to finish the fight." Lyra's voice was calm but certain. It reminded them, "Who I am, but fear alone will not stop them. They will bring something stronger next time, something that cannot be bent by my will." Ethan frowned. "Like what?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the viewport at the gray clouds breaking apart as they climbed higher. "They have machines, mindless but built for one purpose, destroying what they cannot control. They call them the Hollow." The name sent an uneasy feeling through him. "And I'm guessing you've dealt with them before." "Yes," she said softly, "once, and we lost everything." The AI's voice broke in, sharp and mechanical. "Long-range contact detected. Single vessel inbound. Size, capital class, speed, extreme. Estimated arrival in 12 minutes. Ethan tightened his grip on the controls. "That them?" Lyra's gaze stayed on the scanner display, watching the incoming dot grow brighter. "No, that is worse." The incoming ship was massive, its dark silhouette breaking through the upper atmosphere like a jagged wound in the sky. It didn't look like the sleek hunter craft they'd faced before. This was something older, heavier, with jagged armor, plates that looked stitched together from the remains of other vessels. Ethan pushed the throttle, but the AI's voice cut in. "Warning, vessel's gravity well generator has engaged. FTL travel impossible until it is disabled." Lyra's hands tightened on the sphere. "They are here for me. But if they take me, they will take the song as well. That cannot happen." The massive ship released smaller craft, 6 of them shaped like blades. They fanned out in formation, closing in on the shuttle. Ethan weaved through the clouds, trying to make them overshoot. But their speed was relentless. A sudden impact shook the shuttle, sending alarms screaming. One of the blade ships had clipped the wing with a glancing strike, and now they were being herded toward open sky. Lyra stood, moving toward the weapons console. "Bring me close to the capital ship." Ethan shot her a look. "Close. That's suicide." Her expression didn't waver. "It's the only way. If I can reach its core with the song, I can break the gravity well. Then we can escape." He gritted his teeth. "Fine, but you'd better be ready when we get there." The shuttle dived, then climbed hard, using the storm's turbulence to throw off pursuit. Two of the smaller ships peeled away, unable to match. The sudden shift in direction, the others stayed close, firing bursts of energy that scorched the shields. The capital ship loomed ahead, its hull dotted with dark openings like empty eyes. Ethan threaded the shuttle through the enemy fire, skimming so close to the hull that he could see the scars of ancient battles etched into the metal. "Now," Lyra said. She pressed her hands against the crystal sphere, and the glow intensified until the light spilled into the cockpit. Her eyes closed, and a low hum filled the air. Vibrating through the walls of the shuttle, Ethan felt it in his bones, sound deeper than hearing, something that made the hair on his arms stand up. Outside, the capital ship's surface shimmered. The smaller craft faltered, their formations breaking. Then the sound shifted, rising in pitch. The glow spread outward from the shuttle like a ripple on water. It touched the capital ship's hull, and for a moment, the massive vessel seemed to freeze in place. The AI's voice broke through the strange hum. "Gravity well, offline. FTL available." Ethan didn't wait. He punched the coordinates for the farthest jump point in range. The shuttle surged forward, leaving the dark ship shrinking in the distance. When the jump engaged, the stars stretched again into long white lines. The glow around Lyra faded, and she slumped back into the seat, her breathing shallow. Ethan glanced at her. "You okay?" Her eyes opened slowly. It worked, but now they will send everything. He looked back at the stars rushing past. He had no idea where this path would end, but one thing was clear: they weren't running from just a few hunters anymore. The galaxy had noticed, and it wasn't going to let them go quietly. The jump ended with a jolt, the stars snapping back into sharp points of light. Ethan steadied the shuttle, scanning the empty space around them. For the first time in hours, no red blips flashed on the tracker. Just silence. Lyra was still in the co-pilot seat, her hands resting on the crystal sphere. She looked pale, almost translucent, but her golden eyes were steady. "Where are we?" Ethan checked the coordinates. "Edge of the Orion Fringe." No stations, no patrols, just dead space and a few forgotten moons. "We can hide here for a while." She shook her head slowly. "They will find us. They always do. The song will draw them even through the dark." He frowned. "Then we need more than hiding. We need a plan that makes them think twice before coming again." Lyra studied him for a moment. "You speak like a soldier." "I'm not," Ethan said. "But I've been running jobs in bad parts of the galaxy for years. There's one thing I know: you can't scare your enemy. You make them bleed until they decide you're not worth the trouble." Her gaze dropped to the sphere. "The song can fight, but I cannot use it alone. It needs a bond. Someone it will answer to as much as it answers to me." Ethan's brow furrowed. "You mean me?" "Yes," she said simply. "It chose you the moment you freed me. You touched the chamber. You broke the seal, and the song knows your voice now. That is why they hunt you too." He leaned back in his seat, the weight of her words settling on him. "So what do we do?" Her lips curved slightly. "We prepare." They landed on a barren moon, orbiting a gas giant. The surface was a cracked wasteland, but the AI detected deep caverns beneath. They guided the shuttle into one of the openings, shutting down all power except life support. The darkness swallowed them, the only light coming from the crystal sphere in Lyra's hands. For hours, she taught him. The song wasn't just sound, it was focus, intent, and memory. When he tried, nothing happened at first, but with her voice. Guiding him, the sphere responded, glowing brighter, the air around them humming like a living thing. Every time the light flared, Lyra grew weaker, but she didn't stop. "If they come," she said, "you must be able to stand even if I fall." By the time they rested, Ethan could feel the spheres hum in his bones. He didn't understand how it worked, but he knew it was dangerous, more dangerous than any weapon he'd ever carried. The AI's voice broke the stillness. Long-range sensors detect multiple vessels inbound. Estimated arrival, 18 minutes. Ethan met Lyra's eyes. They didn't take long. She stood, still unsteady, but determined. "Then we give them something to remember. Position the shuttle near the cavern's mouth, where the narrow entrance would force the attackers to come in one by one." Ethan manned the weapons while Lyra stood with the sphere, her eyes glowing faintly. The first hunter ship broke through the thin atmosphere, firing into the cavern. The blasts lit the walls in brief flashes. Ethan returned fire, forcing it to veer off. But another came, then another, until the cavern shook from the noise of battle. Lyra stepped forward, raising the sphere. A wave of golden light poured out, cutting through the dust and smoke. The nearest hunter's ship froze mid-flight, its engines flickering before it crashed into the rocks. Ethan fired at the second, hitting its wing and sending it spinning into the canyon outside. But more kept coming. One of the smaller craft landed on the cavern floor, and armored hunters poured out, advancing on foot. Ethan picked them off one by one, but a few reached the shuttle's ramp. Before they could fire, the ground itself seemed to tremble. Lyra's voice rose, carrying a force that made Ethan's chest ache. The hunters dropped their weapons, some falling to their knees, others turning and running as if fleeing something unseen. The sphere's glow burned brighter than ever, but Ethan saw the toll it took. Lyra's knees buckled, and she stumbled. He caught her, the heat from the sphere almost painful against his skin. "You can't keep this up," he said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "One more. Push." She raised the sphere again, and this time the light surged outward like a storm, racing through the cavern and into the sky. The remaining ships outside faltered, their engines stuttering before they turned and fled into the void. Silence fell. The sphere dimmed, and Lyra collapsed into Ethan's arms. He held her close, listening to her shallow breaths. "You're safe now," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if it was true. Her golden eyes opened just enough to meet his. "No, we are hunted, but now they will fear us too." Ethan looked out at the dark sky beyond the cavern. The war for her survival had only just begun, but now it wasn't just her fight, it was theirs. And he had no intention of letting the galaxy take her back.